It's crazy.
I totally get it,
Yeah.
and I can empathize. And I mean, like I don't know if you know this, but I sold a show. I went on tour. Um, I'm writing a book. Just everything that an influencer is supposed to do, I'm trying to do,
Right. Yeah.
and it's like such a mold that I'm trying to like get into because you have to fit it so you can break it, which is a really weird like concept for most people.
Sure.
And I mean, but like, I mean, look at you. You're the coach for one of the best, if not the best, Rainbow Six teams in the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy is that?
No, it's very cool. Definitely a long road for me,
Mm-hmm.
personally, to get there. Because I've been playing since the beginning, and that didn't happen until like basically the beginning of the fifth year. Technically, we always say it's the end of the fourth year.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a grind, obviously, to get to that point. But like to be here now, it's super cool. And then like you always think like, oh, you just got to work hard to get there. But like once you're there, then like that's when you realize the real work starts is to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, it's difficult and it's so much fun. I love everything that I do, obviously, but it's a grind. Yeah.
Yeah. So this video interview is actually part of my book.
Okay.
So I in the first section I'm conducting interviews with people that I see as leaders in their industry that have made some sort of impact or are part of the impact for a shift in how certain things are changing. And esport is a really big piece of that conversation, especially since like I remember being a kid and like my parents thought like it made you violent. So I didn't
Yeah.
have a game like my parents.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a game system until I was 18.
Hmm.
Like we just weren't allowed to play video games cuz mom and dad wanted all their kids to become doctors, right?
Right.
And but that wasn't the case with you. Like it's very clear that you and your brother were allowed to play video games growing up. When you guys moved away out of Washington, obviously it was probably something you guys latched onto as part of the big change in location because
Hmm.
you meet new people, new friends. You're basically starting over from scratch as far as your social ties, and I want that to be part of our conversation today.
Okay.
And so, any insight you have on the shift, the future of esports, and what you see on the horizon from an insider's look would be
Okay.
greatly helpful. And then this
Sure.
podcast will probably come out in like 2 weeks. So, everybody, welcome back to my channel. Normally, we do a 5-minute video where I try to teach you as much value as I possibly can. But today, we have the one and only esports coach, Lycan, aka
Hi, how's it
Justin
going?
Woods, aka my cousin, who I haven't talked to in like 4 years. And
Yeah.
so I think it's a really cool connection that we're having like verified Twitter accounts is such a
Right.
rare thing, and
That's pretty cool.
the fact that we're both in positions in our respective industries where we can have that sort of respect or notoriety or minor celebrity, if you will.
Hmm.
Justin is a professional gamer, a Rainbow Six coach for Space Station Gaming, one of the best teams out there. He's a Navy vet and a father. Some of his notable esport coach wins include the six Invitational for 2020, World Champion for Rainbow Six, United States Nationals 2019, Pro League Season 11 North America win, the North America League 2020 U.S. Division, which now that like I'm reading these, I think the titles for the different leagues are so convoluted as
Oh
far as
yeah.
like areas are.
Yeah.
Like I would love it to be like almost like the Monster Energy
Yes.
Rainbow, like
Yeah.
or like welcome to the Crimson Bowl. Best teams from like in the South. Have a little bit more personality, but these are so generically titled that it almost makes me laugh. And I want to start this conversation off by asking you, where did the name Lycan come from?
Yeah, so my first ever, like I would say, like you could say gamer names were very kid-like. I played games like SOCOM and Counter-Strike and 1.6 and stuff like that. And I used names like Assault Man. It's like some like 13, 14-year-old trying to make like some scary, cool danger name. And I did. Every game I basically went in and I didn't have like an identity. I just kind
Mm-hmm.
of picked something I thought was cool that had to do with the game. So if it was like a shooting game, I used something that had to do with like Assault Man.
No.
And then like the name Lycan actually stems from my previous name, which was Lycan. And that name I created actually in World of Warcraft. And since I had that name, I actually stayed with it and kind of became what it is today. The reason why I picked that name was because I was a huge fan of the Underworld trilogy, and I've always been really fascinated with vampires. And I think a lot of that actually comes from hanging out with you a lot when I was younger. You guys, because my mom is very scared of scary movies, but your dad isn't. And so, like, when I got to go over to your guys' house when I was younger, we got to go and watch scary movies, which we never really got, and it kind of made me like I was really fascinated with vampires growing
Mm-hmm.
up, and which is weird because I chose the werewolf side of it in the end. But that's because I was trying to do a bunch of names that had to do with the movies because I loved the underworld movies. So I tried like Victor, which was obviously like the head vampire in that movie. Tried a bunch of other things and they didn't work. And then I tried Lycan because that is what they call their werewolves in that movie, and it didn't work. And I stuck "duh" on the front of it because, like, in footballs they're like "the Bears" or whatever. So I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be "duh" Lycan," and so
Yeah.
that's literally how my first name started. Was that kind of whole chain of events that kind of like was me. Everyone's done it. You sit in front and it's like, "What's your name gonna be?" And you type it in, and it's like that username is used. Then you're like, oh, okay. So you type in the next one, that username is used. Okay. And through that process, I came up with the Lycan. And then in actually becoming a pro player and being casted, casters were saying my name wrong. They were saying Daily Can, Dally Can, and different sort of versions of the Lycan, and they were never saying it right. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to drop the DA. I'm just going to be Lycan. Can't really confuse that. And then that's where I like finally became Lycan.
I personally like it. It reminds me of like a Mr. Beast
Yeah.
or some sort of like animal or primal energy
hmm
associated with it. And like, how long have you been in the esports world now?
I would say I'd say 5 years, obviously, because of Rainbow Six. I really started my account because of becoming a pro player after we qualified season, like year one, season one for Rainbow Six was when I had the Twitter account for a while, but it was never really used. It was a personal account that like got no traction. I started streaming and I would use my Twitter to help notify people when I was streaming. And it kind of kicked off from there. That's really kind of when I got into the social media space.
Where was the shift from like you're a professional gamer, you're playing Rainbow Six, and you found yourself in this coaching role, which is different sides of were they just like your hands aren't fast enough, but you have like the mental mentality for it,
Right.
or is it like, dude, you're one of those people that see the entire map for what it is, and you could make some really cool plays if we just got like younger players in there. Like, what was that? What was that shift like?
Yeah, I feel like it's all of kind of what you just said, all kind of rolled up into some, you're a boomer bundle. Because I mean, I was what you would call an IGL, is what we refer to in shooter games, in-game leader. And so like, yeah, I really did see like the whole piece of, I've always been a puzzle person. I really like solving problems. And so I was always able to like guide players through like what they were supposed to do as well as play myself. When I basically became too old to really kind of like keep up with these like 18-year-olds and stuff like that, I retired when I was 29. It really was just literally a player offered me a chance to coach at pro league level, and I wanted to stay involved in the game. I really loved it. And also too, I knew like my statistically, I was really falling off and I was really kind of falling out of the scene. So I just kind of, and at the time I didn't even actually think that I really wanted to do something like that. And it just kind of like in that one night where he asked me, I talked to my wife about it, thought about it for a day. And then I was like, you know what? Like, this is probably the best option. And ever since then, I'm so glad that like, I took the day to think about it and go for it because I've fallen in love with it.
What sort of advice would you give to people who wanted to coach a team like this?
You need to be able to basically match their intensity, which is, I think, something that I don't think people really think about. When you're like kind of playing, you kind of feel like maybe like they're heart like more competitive than you would be because you're not actually a part of it, which is not true at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for a player to really respect you and listen to you if he doesn't feel like you're just as committed to the process as they are. Being able to really like get to know and understand your players as well is something that I always, it's my like my first tip to a like aspiring coach, because there's more than one way, especially our game, but every game there's more than one way to play a game. You can play aggressive, you can play passive, you can like focus on attack, you can try to play defense. Like every game has more than one way. I would consider it to be meta. And as long as you kind of like know your players, you can really find like what fits you the best. And then obviously there's a lot of things I would go into from there, but that's always, I think, the number one thing is kind of really understand who you are and who your players are.
What is the scouting process like when you guys are looking to add new players?
Typically, I would say it goes into what we can see, like who we face, like our opponents typically are. You draw from who has the most experience first. Something that I have done, which I think has really kind of changed the way that other teams go about it, is find younger players who are hungry and who are willing to like listen and kind of drive off teamwork more than just their individual skill. There's been players that I have passed on that I knew were better in the moment, but I believed that like with a fresh look, they had like the raw potential that I could make them become a better player than the person that I could have selected off like right away. And it's really kind of proven to work really well with players like Rampy and Fultz, who are now considered, top 10 in the world, both of them. And at the time, they were like questionable pickups for our team. So it really kind of depends. A lot of people really like to get experience, but I'd always say like kind of go with your gut. And if you can see that someone has potential, it's almost more worth it to take a risk on somebody.
I love esports. I tend to watch a lot of like Overwatch. People try to get me to go into like Among Us groups and Fortnite and like all these really cool games that I personally love. And a lot of them are putting celebrity over actual gameplay experience.
Hmm.
So you get like Ninja, who has fantastic player, might not be the best player in the world, but he definitely has like the notoriety for being a great player. But
Sure.
then you had like Drake, who isn't like he's
Right.
not like a professional player, and but it makes it so entertaining to watch that it's drawing an audience. And do you find like value in that, in finding people who have like a level of celebrity as part of the team, or would you much rather have a great player who will just help drive wins?
Is this as far as like esports as a whole or like a competitive team?
Either or.
Okay, I think esports as a whole, I think it's amazing. I think it's like exactly what the I'd say scene, if you want to just look at the whole thing, the scene needs is stuff like that to happen. I mean, I remember when Ninja was bringing people in. I think Drake was one of the first ones, but like he was bringing people in to play like duo Fortnite queues with him. Like I don't watch Fortnite ever. Like I just don't like the game at all. And obviously there's a big meme around it with anyone who's like very takes the esports scene very competitive, that like Fortnite is not a part of that because it's got kind of like the cheesy look and it's kind of kiddie. But I tuned into that stream and I watched it because like it was so big. It was very cool to see, someone that in the music industry with someone that we all know in the esports industry, and seeing them play together, and kind of how like you just kind of wonder how that like those kind of people would always interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they got this moment to like sit down and play games together, and it was so cool to just sit down and watch, even though I didn't care about the game at all. And the scene honestly like needs that kind of stuff. And like AOC obviously sat down and played Among Us with like a bunch of different YouTube creators and stuff like that. And that was super cool to watch. And, I don't follow AOC for anything, but like I watched that whole thing. So, like I think that stuff is really cool because I think it brings in people who have like this stigma, like you said at the beginning about your parents, they really kind of had their own ideas on video games, and whether it's right or not doesn't matter. It's their idea of it. And if you can bring people in who have that idea and you have a chance to change it, I think that's what we as a scene have to try to do at every corner, is just allow people to see like they could be wrong. Whether you tell them they're right or wrong, that there's no place for that. It's you give them a chance and they can either say, oh, I wasn't right, or whatever the case is, but at least in that opportunity we're given a chance. And it's hard to beat that kind of marketing. Sorry, go ahead.
So let me ask you this. Did you ever watch the XFL?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So it wasn't around very long, but the whole point
Right.
of it was to like bring excitement to football that the NFL didn't necessarily have as a whole. And even though, because like, say your team is down, I mean, teams tend to give up when they're too far behind, and then it becomes a terrible game to watch. But with
Right.
the XFL, they were incentivized to continue to outperform and to bring excitement and testability onto the field. Do you think that having an influencer league would be beneficial to be side by side from an actual, like, say you have like all your pro gamers on one side, and then you have like all the influencers who are like okay at said games, but they're really entertaining to watch? Or do you feel like maybe they're better to be in the same mix, because then you're boosting a single league all at once?
I think the best thing for that would be to have them separate, only because I think short term it would be awesome to watch, these influencers go against the pro players. But I think over a short amount of weeks, you would realize how much chance they don't stand. And it would really people would get bored really quick, and people would troll really quick, because it's like, why am I watching this? They're getting obliterated. Like it's not as cool. I think short term people would jump to it and it would be fun, but then people would be like, oh, okay, like, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I shouldn't be watching this. So I think those kind of things are really cool to do, and what we like to call, at least in Rainbow Six, show matches, where, like you get those content creators, and, whoever like wins this tournament, then they'll go against this showcaster, like, in a best of 3 or whatever.
Oh,
I think
fun.
I think in that kind of situation, it's exciting, because you're like, you get to see these big YouTubers in the scene get a chance to play against the pro players. And it does turn out how you expect, obviously, because, the pro players are obviously better, and that's why they're paid to play. But it still kind of gives you that short period of time where it's exciting. And it's not like a long drawn out season where you have to watch your favorite streamer just get like 2 kills, and like the other team's got like 20 kills, and it's just like, ooh, it's like kind of cringe, you would say. But I think even like if you have a caster, if you can get enough content creators together and create a league, that I think also is cool, as long as you can find a way to make the league fair, right? Like if you don't have like basically a bunch of plat and diamond content creators, because there is also to that side, and I would like to talk about that. The like what makes you watch somebody, either their skill or their entertainment, because there is both, right? And I think they both hold like a really like good purpose in the scene. But there is those content creators who are very popular who aren't honestly good, but they're funny and like they're fun to watch, or they like, you know, they rage and like you love to watch the guy just blow up on stream, and that's all fun. But like as long as it was balanced out where the games weren't blowouts, I think leagues like that would be super fun to watch.
So maybe have like what's the team? Team of 5 or 6, right?
5 for Rainbow Six, 6 for Overwatch.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you have like 3 pro players, and then 3 like, you know, streamers that, you know, 2 are really good at the game and one's just like a personality, and
Right.
you have everybody slotted specifically, maybe like evaluators or people looking to like make those judgment calls come in early, put those things together, and then you form like a bracket league, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be really fun to watch.
And you know, Rainbow Six actually just got done doing this.
Really?
So because of coronavirus, our sixth invitational for this year actually got canceled. It's typically in February. That's where we were supposed to defend our title, and it got canceled because it was supposed to be in France, and the French borders literally closed down 3 weeks before we were supposed to travel. So we were left without a tournament, and big names in the community decided like they weren't going to let there be no sixth invitational. So they created what was called the Meme Invitational. And so every team consisted of like one coach, one player, one caster, a content creator, and then the fifth was a like kind of a wild card. It could be like any of those kind of like subsections.
Mm-hmm.
And every region had their own, and we played a full tournament through February with those teams, and it was fun. Like I typically in my streams get somewhere around like 50 to 100 views. In that tournament, I was getting 300. Like I was getting significantly more in my streams because of this event. So like it does prove like what you're saying. Like it's a good idea. People will watch it because you'll get those players like myself, and also too, I had Rampy on my team, which for 2020 was named the #2 player in the world. So you are getting skill, right? And you're getting to listen to them talk about like the things they typically talk about in competitive, but then you're getting the people who don't know that, who are just like, they just kind of like are there and they have fun, and you watch these players like try to like muscle these other like players through the rounds with them. You're like, come on, like this is what we're doing, you know, and it's entertaining, and it's like everything you'd want it to be.
Do you let your kids watch the matches?
Yeah, I don't typically get to like have them watch our matches typically because I'm gone. I'm with the team.
Well,
but
I mean, like while streaming, I guess.
while
Or
streaming,
are they ever like,
yeah,
oh, that's Daddy's team?
yeah. So they'll watch here at home. Like they'll ask my wife for me to put it on, and they'll watch, and when I get home, they'll be like, "Dad, I watched your games. You won." So yeah, I totally am very open with letting them be in like the video game scene very early. I would say even for their age, but we do like, even as like who I am, we do control what we would call screen time, because it's not just video games, but also like iPads, Kindles, you know, Switches and stuff like that. We do try to control it and make sure they're still like playing outside and doing their homework and doing like the normal kid stuff too.
If your kids were like, "Hey, Dad, I want to be a pro, you know, player," like, how would you support that?
Making sure that they were the best that they can be. I'm extremely competitive, and I don't like people to do things without their full effort. I'm trying to be PG, sorry.
It's
But
okay.
okay, you know, I take anything that my kids do very seriously, because I want them to see that I care that much, and I expect them to care as much. Because just like I was talking about earlier, no one's gonna match an intensity that you like fake. You know, you have, if you want, you know, your kid to be serious about something, you have to let them know like you're just as serious about it, or it's just like people can tell when you're not like there. So there's obvious things that I would make sure that they're also handling too. School's a big subject for me. It's really the reason why I landed in the Navy in the first place. I do honor the fact that I defended our country, but also too, I ended up there because I slacked off in college, and that's like something I learned personally. And so I want to make sure like my kids obviously don't do that like to their education like I did.
So you've been in the esports arena for about 5 years now. What are some changes that you've noticed since you first started to like where it is now? Like, how has it evolved?
I think the biggest thing, and it was pretty much around the time where I first started playing professionally, was League of Legends. Obviously, I think is like the big thing that like we can really talk about as the glory of esports or
Oh
whatever you want to
God.
call it. But their games and their streams worldwide to viewers are starting to like tackle like Super Bowl views, and I think that's really the moment where we realized that, hey, playing video games all day when I was a kid, I actually might not have been the biggest like blow off that you could have done. There is there's actually a career in this scene for people, and you can go through this phase of playing when you're a kid into a young adult, and then like you can move into org management, or you can move into being a caster or analyst. Like there's actual career paths being just like built as we're alive. Like this is all happening right before us. Like these jobs are being created and kind of developed by these people who are in charge of these orgs as we're all literally figuring it out as it goes. And I think that's super cool. Like, I was always told kind of, when are you going to stop playing and, kind of grow up? But like, hey, here I am. I'm still playing and I'm still growing up. And I think that's exciting, kind of like in your face for those kind of people.
I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
like wasn't allowed to play video games at all as a kid. My parents thought like video games were going to make you violent,
Right.
and now we know that's quite the opposite, right? We actually find out like when we talk about like school shooting statistics, we usually find out that kids who go through those sort of scenarios tend to not play video games in the first place. Like they just don't have certain outlets that are available to like you and me now.
Yeah.
And I even found myself working in this capacity, even though I didn't have that foundation. And sometimes I wonder if I'd been playing video games like all the way from when I was a kid, I probably would be a professional Overwatch player, like hands
Right.
down. Like I got that game super super late, and I put 400 levels in like a year and a half. And like in terms of support, I'm pretty unbeatable, which is great. But I just think like if I had that foundation, things might have played out
Yeah.
differently.
True.
And so let me ask you this. Where do you think this is all going? Like, what other things do you see are on the horizon for this like shift in entertainment and gaming?
Yeah, I think the first thing we really have to figure out is how to really control the talent that comes into esports. I think the first thing that's really difficult to figure out is statistically, it's just proven that the best people at playing these games are very young. You're talking in some games, if you're allowed 16, but most typically 18. And then you're retiring, I'd say most of them, unless you're very talented, 25. You're going to have very immature adults being the face of your franchise. And I think we're really seeing that kind of come out in like some of these scandals that come out, or like people that like just say things they shouldn't in interviews. And I think we'll really start to see the psychology side and like kind of like the interview talent, like trying like the people's jobs will actually be to teach these people how to have interviews, because they don't know how to do it. A lot of them, obviously, because they're talented, is because they practice a lot. If you practice a lot, that means you're in your house a lot. If you're in your house a lot, you're not talking to a lot of people every day. So like they aren't really skilled to like just sit down and have a conversation between two people. I think as we move along, you'll really start to see these kids having like boot camps where they learn like, how to speak intelligently in an interview and not say things you shouldn't, think twice before speaking once, and, how to handle themselves at an event. Just because you're the star doesn't mean you should treat people like in some different way that you imagined that's because you're a star you should be doing that. And I think there's a lot of room for growth in that area, especially in our scene, because it's so young.
One of my favorite things to watch are esports interviews.
Yeah, it's pain.
It is so cringy to watch and hilarious at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally see what you mean as far as like maybe that's an entire business.
Right.
Hey, I'm a consultant. Let me come in and teach your players to have professional reputations and how to present yourself properly on camera and during interviews, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a need for it, and the scene could benefit from it so much. Just from a sponsor's standpoint, just having these kids be able to, one, not say anything that the sponsor wouldn't like and would have to drop them for. That's obviously a big one. But like two, also two, not forgetting to mention them at some point in the interview. Like these guys wear it all over their chests or whatever, and they just talk about themselves the whole interview, which sure is fine. But like if you're looking for the esports scene to grow and the org's trying to run a business and they're paying you tons of money, like you should be saying thank you to them at some point. Like they're paying your livelihood, and I think there's like a lot of different ways where you could respectfully just kind of give a shout out to your sponsors, and like also to not offend them at the same time. And
I can see those interviews being like, hey, how do you like what do you contribute to like this win? Like my team, God, and flaming hot Cheetos,
right. Even something as funny as that could definitely work, but that's not even being used right now.
Man,
Yeah.
oh man, I do see it as maybe like a consulting lately. There has got to be like the same people who prep like pop stars for
Right.
entertainment and media. I mean, they're using all their time to like make music, and yet they do have coaches to deal with those sort of things. And I'm surprised that the esports industry isn't pulling the same sort of resources to get their guys ready for those sponsors that you're talking about. And I can definitely see it as treating esports players more like pop stars.
Mm-hmm.
It is really where I see everything going in this terms. But probably the last thing, what would you say to parents who would say, I want my kids to be professional esports players, but I'm worried that, this is detriment. It's going to do more harm than good. This isn't something I grew up with. I don't see it as a legitimate career. How would you change my mind?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to take away from that right away is if you're actually interested in esports, it's a lot different than just interested in playing video games. The two worlds are it's very different. It's like literally the difference between I'm very interested in playing backyard baseball or I'm very interested in joining a traveling baseball team. There's not much difference, and I think people have like this stigma for video games that it has like for years, and I think it's fine that it's happened. I don't think we should attack the people that believe that way. Like I've said earlier, I think it's something that we have to show, like the reason why they're wrong, and like you can't just come out and be like, well, that's not true, because there's not a whole lot of value in just saying that. But if you're just playing backyard baseball all the time with your friends, you're really not going anywhere, and you're kind of wasting any talent you might have. Or like also too, you're not getting coached in your backyard, and you can't like really grow as fast as you can on a traveling baseball team where you have this coach who wants you to be better because he wants to win. He has like his own motivation as well. And I would say it's no different than that situation. If you're looking to be a part of a 5-man, 6-man roster, you got to work on communication. You got to work on teamwork. You know, you're gonna come across obstacles and reasons why you can't win games. You have to literally work with the 5, 6, 7 other people, if you have coaches as well on your team, to figure out why you're having that problem, and then how you overcome that problem to move on to win. And how could you not tell me that won't better you in your normal life, even if you don't choose to do esports for the rest of your life? That kind of problem solving skill, any employer is looking for someone who knows how to problem solve on their own. No one wants a person to be like, hey, how do I do this? It's like, I don't know, man, Google it. Like, it's not that hard. Figure it out yourself. You know, these people that like are trying to be a part of these teams learn to be problem solvers at a very young age compared to some other adults who are thrown into college on their own in a flat, and they're 22 years old and they're like, I guess I eat top ramen again because I have no clue how to make money on my own, you know? And that's where I would say the huge selling point is you literally learn how to make your way through problems before most other people do.
I love that so much. Hey, Justin, where can the people find you?
Yeah, on Twitter is typically where you can find me. It's at Lycan. That's it. I do stream at Lycan R6, and also too I'm on Instagram Lycan R6. I am mostly on Twitter though. I try to stream, but I don't always get there, and I sometimes don't post pictures because I don't ever get a haircut because of COVID. But no, yeah, please feel free to reach out to me. I do enjoy like meeting people from across the world. I think that part of this world has been so cool for me. So yeah, Twitter, please. Okay, for sure.
Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, do all the different things on whatever social network you are currently watching this on. Smash the like button, and I will see you in the next video.